Presidente, boa viagem, boa viagem, boa viagem. Jadi maksudnya Presiden Republik Ramo-Horta daderne continua nini viagem ba fila falia Azerbaijan maksudnya botrare Presiden Republik sayona husi hotel wardrobe Qatar nini maksudnya hodi continua nini viagem ba iha Azerbaijan maksudnya tu ya agenda Presiden Republik Ramo-Horta se fila hika husi Azerbaijan iha loron sanulu resin rua maksudnya si lorong sanulu fulan maksudnya nih maksudnya botrare ya nih botrare yo oke Eso. Oh, our president. Okay, yeah.
And I have to mention U.S. Millennium Challenge Corporation. After almost 20 years of delay, negotiations, finally an agreement was signed for a $500 million grant, among others, to address issue of water, clean water, sanitation, but also education. We initiated a large-scale public-private partnership, the first we did in Timor-Leste, with the construction of Tiber Bay Port, a deep water port, fully automated, is almost $400 million, more than $400 million project, already operating, fully automated, construction of a submarine fiber optic cable system. It is submarine fiber optic, so do not confuse with submarine, actually. So I don't want to be misread. and upgrading, modernizing our international airport with $300 million plus investment. That involves Timor-Leste, Japan, I think World Bank. So we probably also next year we will join WTO. This next year, or this year, sorry, this year. The deferment of our LDC graduation has to do with all the challenges that we are facing. You know, when everything seemed to be going well, suddenly we had COVID, and we managed COVID very well. In the sense, in actual counting of direct death from COVID, I guarantee less than 20. Of course, this silly counting done by WHO or whoever is that a young man, 20 years old, had a motorbike accident. We have a lot of motorbike accidents in Timor-Leste on daily basis. Very young, 20 years old, broke his head, died. Then they did a post-mortem blood test. He was positive. So they put there, died with COVID. Well, I said, well, 1 year from now, no one died of traffic motorbike accident in Timor. So silly. Then, literally no more than 20, much less actually. That's because I follow it 24 hours, believe me. And but it impacted on supply in our domestic market, from the people in the rural areas to supply vegetables to the cities where people have money to buy. So that's completely paralyzed. Child malnutrition is an area that we cannot be proud of. It's unacceptable. So solutions have to be found, and this year. And we don't want to hear more studies. I don't want to hear studies. We have seen so many studies already. We know there is child malnutrition. We know there is extreme poverty. So any study coming to me, I throw away. Sorry, I want solutions. I want funding. And we envision Timor-Leste where every child can access healthy food. And our economy is slowly recovering from the COVID slump. We registered growth 2022, 3.3%, still very modest, but there is, I believe, a possibility of real recovery as we join ASEAN. We will be part of 700 million people market. We will be part of $4 trillion economy. So possibilities of investors coming to Timor-Leste already increasing. International partnerships are key to support the enabling environment for a structural transformation. The prospects for attaining SDGs and LDC graduation are affected by, we know, by the global environment, not of our making. Ask the Russians about it, and so we have nothing to do with the Ukraine war. We condemn the war, the invasion, and Timor-Leste, all other LDCs, fragile states, the rest of the world. And the problem is, ladies and gentlemen, since the first financial crisis, 2008, 2009, that with the subprime, I was in New York. 2009, attending General Assembly. That was my previous presidency. Every OECD country speaking there said, ODA will not suffer from the financial crisis. Every one of OECD countries reduced drastically their commitment. Exception, at the time, of course, always Norway, Sweden, Finland, and so on. Great exception was UK under David Cameron, the only G7 country that increased ODA to 0.7%. But David Cameron made a mistake, called a referendum on Brexit. He lost the referendum, and we lost the 0.7% of our UK commitment. And not one OECD country has gone back to the levels before the first financial crisis. And some traditional donors no longer, because money was diverted from development programs to the refugee crisis in Europe, to the crisis in Central African Republic, to Mali. Many OECD countries, or G7 countries, cease to be bilateral donors. They say now they fund only through European Union. Well, I have the greatest admiration for European Union, and I'm totally unsuspected in terms of, I admire. I was the one who nominated the European Union for the Nobel Peace Prize. No one else. I did it, and they got the Nobel Peace Prize. So I'm prepared to criticize it. If you count on the European Union to make expeditious decisions, well, you have to wait 4 years. From the moment the European Union identify a program, a project, take 4 years before something is delivered. Well, we need faster decisions, and we need serious commitment. And otherwise, this forum here and many others will be talk shops, and no real commitment. We need market access. We need a write-off the debt of third world countries, starting with fragile states, LDCs, and highly indebted countries. We haven't heard a single commitment in that regard from anyone. The Secretary, yesterday there are 2 speakers who talk about writing off debt. Secretary General Antonio Guterres and myself. No one else talk about this. So anyway, I end here because I promise not to take too much of your time. God bless you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for a very lively presentation. And I'll make sure that I tell my colleagues in the UN in Timor-Leste not another research on nutrition. So I will definitely get the message loud and clear there. So thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I would now like to move to our next speaker. This is my country, my Nepal now. So Nepal presents a very interesting case of structural transformation. For instance, it is facing premature deindustrialization at a much lower level of manufacturing share of GDP and a lower level of income. Against this backdrop, I'd like to invite His Excellency, Dr. Minister Bahadur Shrestha, Vice Chair of National Planning Commission, Nepal, to share his perspective on Nepal's structural transformation. Over to you.
Thank you, Anna. It is difficult to pronounce my name correctly. Excellency Jose Ramo-Horta, President of the Republic of Timor-Leste, Ms. Rebecca Greenspan, Secretary General of UNCTAD, Ms. Armida Salsia Alisjaban, UN Under Secretary General and Executive Secretary of UNESCAP, Mr. Henry Puna, Secretary General, Pacific Islands Forum Secretariat, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I would like to thank UNESCAP for organizing this side event on facilitating structural transformation towards achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals in Asia Pacific LDCs in the margin of LDC 5. This topic is so relevant and important to the LDCs in Asia Pacific in general and to Nepal in particular. I believe the outcome of this side event will be very fruitful to all of us to contribute in sketching a grand plan for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals and graduating from the least developed countries status through structural transformation in our respective economies. As Nepal prepares to graduate from the least developed country category, I am proud to share that Nepal has made a significant progress towards its social development goals. Nepal's SDI value has increased to 0.602. The multi-dimensional poverty has reduced to 17.4%. Life expectancy has reached 70.8 years. The literacy rate for 15 to 24 years old has increased to 88.6%. Women's representation in elected positions at all levels and in public service decision-making has increased remarkably. However, the progress in various economic indicators are slow and not satisfactory. In the past decades, Nepal's economy grew at an average annual rate of 4%. This progress has even slowed down due to earthquake, floods, and blockade in the southern border in 2015-16. But after the earthquake, we ramped up our efforts and consequently, our economy grew by 7% per annum on average between 2017 and 19. In 2021, Nepal for the third time met the threshold levels for LDC graduation in 2 out of 3 indicators and set to graduate in 2026 with 5-year transition period. However, we are also aware that Nepal is only a country that is graduating from LDC status without meeting income criteria. Nepal had an average per capita income of $1,027 during 2017 and 2019, slightly below the graduation threshold. In the current period of global economic slowdown, we are struggling hard to bring back our economy to the pre-pandemic stage in terms of growth and progress. Our growth path was non-traditional, meaning that we witnessed premature deindustrialization, as Hannah just mentioned. In 1996, the share of industry in our GDP reached 21.5%, and thereafter, industries' share observed a constant decline, reaching around 14% of GDP after 2019, while the share of service sectors reached 62%. We have seen from our own experience and that of our fellow countries that the growth supported alone by the service sector can be reversed at the face of external shocks such as pandemic and economic slowdown. Nepal has some macroeconomic and structural constraints like low level of productivity, low economic growth rate, increasing inflation, high trade deficits, significant current account and BOP deficits, pressure in foreign reserve, and higher unemployment and inequality. Therefore, smooth structural transformation and modernizing primary and secondary sectors are our priority agenda. One step on this path was increasing focus on joining global value chains and promoting exports. Our current 15th periodic plan focuses on structural transformation of the economy. As a part of this, we have put increased emphasis on building infrastructure, increasing production, productivity, and competitiveness, and creating and expanding the coverage of social protection system. We are also preparing our 16th plan and at the same time smooth transition strategy. Both of these documents will be in line with the above said priorities of structural economic transformation and sustainable development goals. In addition to numerous policy reforms, the government of Nepal has established special economic zones to attract domestic and foreign investment and promote economic development. It has provided various incentives for businesses operating in these special economic zones, including income tax exemptions, customs duty exemptions, debureaucratization of business processes, etc. Constructions of new infrastructure and procedures have helped to ease export of our produce. Introduction of single window service and national payment gateway and easing of repatriation procedures have also improved the investment climate and doing business environment of the country. Nepal is working on the bills of e-commerce and an integrated IPR. Implementation of these two laws in near future will make Nepal's economy more investment and business friendly. We have identified our key potential areas that can lead us toward economic transformation to achieve SDGs and ensure sustainable and progressive graduation. They include hydroelectricity, transport infrastructure, modernized agriculture, tourism, connectivity, productive use of remittance, and best utilization of demographic dividend. We need huge investment and technology transfer in these priority areas to meet our development goals. Hence, I would like to call upon the international community and development partners to support us in reversing the deindustrialization by catalyzing the process of industrialization. This will help us fulfill our graduation and development aspirations. I also call upon fellow LDCs for the effective South-South cooperation for the irreversible and sustainable graduation. I thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Min Bahadur Srestha. Yes. I'll be in trouble. Dr. Srestha is my principal counterpart, you know. Thank you very much for sharing an account of Nepal's challenges and policy initiatives. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Now, having heard from some profound insights from the two countries of LDCs, I would now like to shift to some multilateral perspectives. The role of the international community, as we heard, is particularly important in supporting LDCs to accelerate structural transformation. There are a multitude of organizations that today provide support to LDCs, ranging from trade negotiations to advisory support on investment climate, and hopefully less research. So to hear from an organization that is deeply involved in assisting LDCs in augmenting productive capacities, I'd like to invite Ms. Rebecca Greenspan, Secretary General of UNCTAD, to share her insights on structural transformation and the role of UNCTAD has been playing. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. In fact, I have something written, but I am inspired by the other commentators, and I would like really to refer to some of the things that have been said, if you allow me, to be a little bit maybe chaotic, but referring to the other speakers. And first of all, thank you so much to the President of Timor-Leste. We heard you also in the World Economic Forum, in the investment panel that UNCTAD held there on the issues that affect LDCs and obviously seeds. And I want to remind everybody that it was in 1974 when UNCTAD was created, the first time that we talked about LDCs. It was with the creation of UNCTAD that the LDC categories started to be discussed. And it was only 7 years later that the category actually was created. And the President is very right that this was not, to the difference of the categories of the World Bank, of low income, middle income, and high income, the LDCs started from the beginning on the structural issues. And GDP doesn't touch the structural issues and obstacles that the LDCs have. I wanted to read to you, if I find it, what was said at that time was exactly what the two speakers referred to, the structural also obstacles that these countries face to be included in trade, in international trade. And not only because of the distance, not only because of the cost, but also because of the structural transformation obstacles that the countries face. And it was, in a way, sad to see that the Committee of Development decided to graduate several years ago, to graduate the LDCs, only when they were separate themselves enough in one of the categories, in one of the indicators of the category of LDC, because the whole idea of the category was to include structural problems, yes? And that criteria was changed. Before, you could only graduate it from the LDCs if you had the threshold in all the three categories and indicators of the LDC category. Now, you can graduate only by GDP. If your GDP is, far enough from the threshold. I think that is double the threshold of GDP. So a country like Angola, when the price of oil goes up, can graduate. When it goes down, cannot. And because there is no structural proposition, included only on the GDP. And we have asked the Committee of Development, actually, to revise the criteria again. But there is a discussion within the committee, but many of the developing, representatives in the Development Committee that decides on graduation are now putting forward going back to the original, idea of the category of LDC. Because if you look at the categories of the World Bank, almost all the countries have graduated from low income. Suddenly, you have a distribution in the world where low income almost won't exist. They will graduate by GDP, and you ask yourself, so what is the rationale of having only middle income and high income countries in the world? Most of the low income countries have